Yeah, let's do it.
All right. What's going on, guys? It's Zach Tao here with Chris K and Andrew Katz. We're going to go over some things we talked about the other day because Chris can give his words of wisdom on. But how are you guys doing?
Good. It was Monday, but looking forward to talking some football.
I'm pretty good, man. I'm not really. I don't know. It already feels like it's been a long week, and it's only Monday night, so
It's Monday.
Ready for the weekend.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm doing all right. Thanks for asking, guys. But anyway, so let's go ahead and jump in. Chris, I know you've been really dying to give your words about Bo Nix transferring to Oregon and whatever, but the floor is yours.
Yeah, I was listening or I guess it wasn't last week. It was like days ago, but I don't know. I would say I'm the resident Auburn guy of this group at the very least. I have season tickets, so I think I can at least claim that. I think ultimately Bo's time is ran out, right? Like I think he was like always going to go to Auburn because of his dad, and he was a big recruit, and of course Auburn wanted him. But like Gus never got him any better. Like tell me the last quarterback that Gus actually made better. Was there anybody? Like I can't think of anyone.
You're putting us on the spot.
Nick Marshall.
I mean, Nick Marshall was a runner, like that was pure running ability.
Yeah.
So like he catered to that, and I think it's kind of like what you said the last time, Andrew. Like
I was testing you to see if you actually listened.
Yeah, Bo Nix isn't like the same. Like he can run, but he's not a Nick Marshall, right? And I think the problem with Bo is that someone made the joke about like him hitting all points of the pocket, like frantically, and he's just got the worst footwork in America. And when he actually has good footwork, he can play really, really well. I don't know if he's going to be any good at Oregon. The fit's weird. But when I saw that and heard that, I was like, doesn't that just remind you of Anthony Brown? Like, I feel like they're the same quarterback. Like, I feel like I'm going to roster him 60% of the time at like 6,200 on DraftKings because he projects for like 22 points, like 20 points, because he runs just enough in a high-scoring offense. So I don't know. I feel like I'm going to have a lot of
about that. Like, I tend to like him more than Anthony Brown, but I don't know that I'm going to reach for him if in a redraft scenario.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch him in like a season long any of those formats because like he just doesn't have a ton of upside compared to like what his typical game is going to be. But I don't know. It felt weird, just like when Anthony Brown went to Oregon. It was like, this is odd. Like, why would Oregon want him? And Oregon faithful in like the Devi crowd, the C2C crowd are all up in arms about it because not only is it Bo Nix going to a spot making a splash, it takes over for that Ty Thompson guy that everybody loves. And now it's like everybody's frantic about like, wait, is like Thompson garbage? Like, what is this? So it's been enjoyable in that aspect to see the Knicks transfer.
Yeah, look, I'm kind of excited to see the chaos that he brings to the offense, but realistically, I don't know that he necessarily improves Oregon because I think they're pretty good as is. But I guess we'll see. Andrew, you have anything else to add to that? Or
let me ask you, Andrew, what's like the outlook for Oregon? Because they lost like Pittman and Dye and a couple other guys. Are they supposed to be good offensively?
And they just lost Verdell, right? They have Cardwell in the backfield. They have Seven McGee, who's supposed to be Tony Pollard. So everybody talks about Oregon offense now in the context of the Memphis offense because the Memphis OC went to Florida State. I mean, Zach kind of talked about how that they're not even running an offense there. They're just running Jordan Travis around for days in that offense. It's the only time they're successful. So I don't understand why. It seems like we talk about this and glorify this Memphis offense and everyone associated with it from when they had like these four players who are all slaughtering at the NFL level now in that backfield. Maybe the offense just isn't that good. Maybe the system isn't that good, and we still have these expectations associated with the memory of that offense. So, I mean, I have no nothing but love for Dan Lanning as a coach, obviously, but he just brought in his boy from his Memphis days over to be the OC there. So, but I don't know what we can really think about and project for this offense based on recent history, and do so in a way that actually makes us think, this is going to be successful because the players in this offense have been successful, and the coaching staff in this offense have been successful. I mean, it doesn't really feel like there's a ton to go on with that. They're bringing in supposedly or potentially Jarek Broussard, right? And they've got all these, or they had all these highly rated recruits, wide receiver who did absolutely nothing in the Joe Moorhead offense. So, I mean, the best way to describe this offense, I guess, outside of Bo Nix, is it's very much a black box, right? I mean, there's so much unknown, and I think anyone who's going to try and just copy and paste anything with respect to that offense outside of maybe Nix is just really going out on a limb.
Yeah, I think, at least for me, just my natural reaction when I hear Oregon, I think Oregon, regardless of what they're actually doing on the field, my mind instantly goes back to like Chip Kelly, Oregon Ducks, just offense is just going to put up points, whatever, when realistically they're not that anymore, right? And I think a lot of people, their mind kind of goes there too. They associate Oregon with offense, right?
Yep.
Like that's just what people do. But you're right, though. Like the Memphis offense was always just this high scoring juggernaut, it seemed. But when you really take into account when they had 4 or 5 NFL caliber players on that team, maybe just their talent was that good, and that's why they were so good versus the system being the reason they were any good.
Fuente was like pre those days and had great offenses. Took a buddy with him to Virginia Tech and was just the absolute worst once he lost Evans and Isaiah Ford. But probably don't want to beat this one too much. But I don't want to live in a world where Oregon's offense is going to be what it's going to be. It's just like you said, you think of Oregon's offense or team and you think of these cool uniforms, which they still have, and an offense that should score like 45 points a game and 7 seconds between plays, like just changing the way college football was for a short period of time under Chip Kelly.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'd love to see that again, but I think
not with Bo Nix. That's not gonna happen.
I mean, if Bo Nix decides to do that, then that's great. But yeah, I don't know. I think they're definitely the bar is low, so anything he does that's good will kind of just exceed the expectations, I think. All right, so let's just move on to that. We're gonna go back to another topic we talked about last week because some news has come out of Hawaii's head coaching search, hiring Timmy Chang. Andrew, thoughts?
Dude, it's happening. We get to be excited about Hawaii again, really unabashedly so, right? There's no gray cloud of hovering over Hawaii going forward, whether it be in the way of everything that was going on with Todd Graham or the idea if June Jones was hired that he was kind of going to just clash his way through a couple of years, retire, and then we'd be back in a situation where the program is just clawing and scratching and trying to find their next coach and probably making a bad hire. No, we get to be really excited for Timmy Chang to come in and just throw the ball around at midnight every Saturday night as we try and recoup those gambling losses. So it's going to be great. The talent that they have there is, of course, really not in a great place, thanks to Graham, with so many players declaring for the draft, transferring out. That I don't really even know what they've got. I mean, off the top of my head, right? I think they have Dedrick Parson coming back, but in a run shoot offense, I don't think you really want much to do with the running back historically. And I think they still have Jared Smart, so he becomes interesting. But I mean, from just seeing what we've seen and what we know about the run and shoot offense, right? We want more of the inside receivers, the slot backs, and he's always played outside. So maybe the receiver positions that we care about are largely unspoken for at this point. What I was thinking about the other day, though, was so Cameron Cooper goes to Washington State, I think under Leach, and is recruited to run the air raid. Rolo comes in. He's running the run, and he's now failing to win the job in a run and shoot offense. Rolo obviously gets canned. New coach comes in and is an air raid coach. And Cooper says, I'm out the door. I'm going to Hawaii. And now he's back in the run and shoot again. So that's an interesting cycle. I mean, he was a huge recruit when he, I think he was 4-star recruit when he came to Washington State initially. So they do not have a lot in the way at quarterback. And obviously everybody wants to run shoot quarterback, right? They have that dude, Brandon Traeger, who I didn't catch any of the games that he actually got into when Cordero was out in Graham's offense this year. But I mean, you'd have to think that Cooper, if it's just him, Cooper versus Traeger, Cooper's got a good shot at winning that job. So, I mean, I'm overall very excited for year one of the Timmy Chang era. I mean, what's the worst thing that happens? They fall behind and they have to air it out. I mean, it's going to be fun. Will it be?
That's what we want.
Yeah, I mean, will it be a awesome offense in year one? Probably not. But
so, if you guys watched or listened to us last Friday, you heard Andrew emphasize the midnight start times. I think that's really why this is so exciting, right? We'll get back to the run and shoot at midnight, 2 a.m. Finishes, right?
Like 11:59 though, right? Like they had to throw the old 1 minute stipulation there on a lot of those on the schedules.
Dude, they had the game against San Jose State this past year kicked off at like 12:30. For some reason,
Zero
they needed
regard
to give that extra half hour.
All right, so when you say like the talent isn't there, wouldn't this be a really for one of these transfer wide receivers that's looking for an opportunity? Like they've been getting them here and there, right? Like those guys that don't make it. It was your guy that was at Cal, then went to Georgia.
Oh, Demetrius Robertson.
Yeah.
Like, why couldn't a guy like that go to Hawaii, especially with the opportunity now? Like, you're gonna get targets, you're gonna get playing time.
I think the problem with that is that you just go into a black hole, right? Like where you're just like, if it doesn't work out, then like you just you're on an island, literally, with no one.
You're literally on an island. Yeah, I guess that's true. It would be a culture shock for sure, right? Like, I mean,
yeah.
You could say that. You could say that just about like anybody going to the South, though. Like somebody from Michigan going to Florida to play football would be a completely different.
Or vice versa with the snow and stuff.
Right. So, yeah.
If there's a style of offense though to like turn around a team with zero promise currently, it's got to be the run and shoot, right? Like that's like I feel like you can take advantage of, especially with like it being the Mountain West, which we've all agree is great, like entertainment football. You're going to get bad defenses. So I think they could be a little bit more fantasy friendly than, initially.
It's essentially a 7-on-7, right? Like their offense is a 7-on-7. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the 7-on-7. It's no line, just snap it, throw it to the receiver, and let the playmakers do their thing, right? Like that works if you have the playmakers, though. Like if you don't have them, it's very limited.
Definitely. They play the 13-game schedule too, but one of the games is week 0. But at least last year, right, they played New Mexico State twice. I looked a little while ago, and I think they do something funky again where they play like 2 FCS teams or something with it to get to 13 games. It's great. So their schedule from there's so much to love, right? The late kicks times, the like 4 or 5 non-conference games, including some schools that that have borderline no one's ever heard of. So, I mean, even if the talent leaves a lot to be desired presently, right? The portal that can be there to kind of help them get above the threshold of where they need to just be an offense that can get things going. And then, I mean, at minimum, I think it's super interesting.
I mean, they're bringing a legend back, which is always cool. I mean, you said he was a receiver coach. I don't follow Timmy Chang a lot. So he went from receiver coach at Washington to head coach at Hawaii. Is that how that? I mean, like
Nevada,
even better. Like, how do you capitalize? I mean, you just straight capitalize on your college career like it was nothing.
Oh,
like just going from Nevada receiver coach to. I mean, it'd be awesome to see. I mean, that'd be.
He was in Nevada for 4 years. I'm looking at it like he was the inside receivers coach, then he was the tight ends coach, then he was the wide receivers coach. Now he's the head coach at Hawaii. Like, hey, good for him, right? Definitely. Good for us. But I pulled up their schedule. They open up with Vanderbilt on the island.
Getting the tough game out of the way in week 0 so that we don't.
Then they get Western Kentucky.
So Timmy can focus all off season on week 0.
Yeah. So they got Vanderbilt, Western Kentucky, at Michigan, Duquesne, Mexico State. I mean, go down the list, Mountain West schedule. But yeah, I mean, potentially could be fun year 1. But I guess we'll have to wait and see how the receivers shake out. Until then, it's just we hope for the best, I guess. All right, we're gonna move to our next topic. JT Daniels entered the portal. Where do you guys think realistically he ends up, and do you think he starts where he goes?
I mean, I don't know where he feels like a Nevada quarterback to me, but like, why would you go to Nevada if you're him? I pulled up the famous Andrew Katz tweet from the other day that had this list of schools, and none of them really jumped out. Like, would he be intrigued by going to like Duke? Like, does that do anything for him? Probably not. The one that looked the most interesting that is not factually correct anymore because of Chase Bryce is App State. Like, that would feel like a good like combination there. I don't know what makes that sense or where he'll actually go, but like, you'd have to think he starts.
Zach, did you look into the Boise rumors? Is there anything there? You're on mute.
Sorry, I was muted. But no, I didn't look into the rumors that much because I think they're loyal to Hank. I really do.
Is that your heart or your mind speaking?
That's what I think.
Yeah.
My heart says I hope they go for it and they give him a legitimate shot.
Yeah.
Because like I like Hank, don't get me wrong. Got a lot of heart, but you've been there long enough now that you can't keep holding on to the ball until you die, essentially, because that's what he's doing.
You brought up Jack Sears last time, and when I go to Auburn, there's a person that works within the community that has like a pretty good vibe. So like, he had told me like,
hold on, do we have an exclusive here that we're about to break?
No, well, maybe. I don't think it's going to happen anymore. But originally, he told me like, hey, Bo Nix and Oregon have a call at noon or something, So like, he has some pretty reliable stuff, which is like the most ridiculous situation of how I know him. But he had said that he thought Jack Sears might go to Auburn, which makes sense if you think about it because of Harsin.
Right.
The question is, would you transfer somewhere where Harsin's just going to end up getting fired probably in the next year? So probably not. Is
that the word?
I mean, I think everybody in the community does not like him. That's a general comment, but it's hard to.
Is there a particular
weird? I think I'm not falling for this trap. I just think that he did not do a lot of I don't think publicly he did a lot of things right in terms of like the whole COVID situation, we'll say. Like, I think he kind of tackled it a certain way that was not received well. Go figure in Alabama. but production matters, and it not great to do what they did this year. The couple losses they had, like Mississippi State, like really, really rubbed people the wrong way.
Like I always wonder, like they played Alabama so well. If they win that, let's just say if they win that game, does that buy him another year?
Yeah, he gets a year. He gets 2 years. I think it's
What if
very
TJ Finley hadn't thrown that touchdown against Georgia State?
Exactly, right? Like you could do that.
Yeah,
he's definitely he's obviously the coach this year. Is he going to last another year? I don't know. I mean, like the situation at Auburn's pretty bleak, right? The receiver group is pretty whatever. Yeah. Tank's got 1 year left. Hunter's good.
Offensive line is years. You might do something.
Offensive line is blown up. They lose everybody. Then they lose a lot of big names on defense, and then obviously Finley is your quarterback. So I'm curious what they would do with like the former 4-star. I think his name was Demetrius Davis, something like that. He was supposed to be really great. He's not really a fit for Harsin. He's more of a Gus guy. I'm surprised he hasn't.
He could be. He's a fit for Harsin in a way, but we won't get into that. So the original question was JT Daniels. Where do we think he transfers?
Tying back into a little bit of our discussion from last time and giving it some thought, I'm crystal balling him to Louisiana Tech to go run Cumbie system, throw 50 times a game, and just rip apart Conference USA.
If he was smart, he would do something like that. I mean, the guy's got a great arm.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's got pro potential easily, right? Yeah. Like, so just go somewhere that's going to throw it.
Okay, so
he could go anywhere, and it
hear me out.
Surprising.
Hear me out. So why is Ole Miss not a possibility?
I mean, it would make sense to me. I guess I never even thought about that.
I mean,
the rumors about Dart, right?
So, yeah, but would you rather have Dart or JT Daniels?
I'd probably rather have Dart, just because I get a couple of years of him.
Well,
right.
Yeah, I mean, but this game of the transfer portal, you essentially can get a new quarterback any year you want, right? Like,
do you want the old USC quarterback that got brutally injured, or do you want the newer model?
I mean,
I don't know.
That's fair, I guess. I mean, I don't think it's a wrong answer either way. I think, I'm not saying that's where he's going to go either. Like, I think it's a good possibility if they want him.
Yeah, I like the Louisiana Tech call though.
That's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair. All right, so enough of that. All right, so if you were listening last week, Andrew broke that Jordan Addison would be going to Alabama. Now, I don't know if that's still going to happen with Burton transferring there.
No, you got scared of Burton, I think.
Okay, so he's going to stay put, you think, or do you think he goes to Hawaii?
That's a great call. Dude, he would catch 200 passes at Hawaii. That'd be awesome.
I mean, go before the transfer, how many receivers do we think Alabama needed? Because in my head, I was thinking at least 2. I was thinking 2.
Yeah,
like
right.
2 starters.
If they got another.
Yeah.
I mean, who's going to turn Alabama down if they come saying, "Hey, we got a spot for you," right? Like, they're going to go. I guess it really just depends on how much they really like these guys behind, like these freshmen that they had. Hall, Brooks, Baker's gone now, but like JoJo Earl, like all of these guys, like, do they step in and just become the next wave, or are they going to rely on transfers again to shoulder the load? Because if you go look at the numbers, I don't have them up, but if you go look at the numbers between Jameson Williams and Mechie, they had to have caught like 80% of the balls.
Yeah,
between the two of them.
But so you can make an argument that Burton slides into Mechie's role and Brooks slides into Williams, and those are like pretty glove fit. Probably neither is quite as good, but maybe 80-85% in that range, I guess. But that wasn't good enough this year. So the goal is just to replicate this year. The goal probably is not to replicate this year, right? It wasn't good enough. They didn't get the job done.
It was good enough, you could argue.
Yeah, fair.
If they were playing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they would have won, but I think the game is different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there was a huge not a huge. There was enough of a difference.
Yeah.
When Jameson was down, it almost felt like they couldn't do anything.
But it felt like, and I hate
a defense to lose two top guys.
But if you roll out the Ruggs, rest in peace too. The Ruggs, Waddle, Judy mold of offense. How do you just like go back to what this year was and think like that? That's not the transcendent offense. I don't know how you. Yeah, I don't know how you see how Alabama can operate and think that this year's was good enough.
Yeah,
I think you go and try and replicate that.
I don't think it was good enough either at the end. Like, I feel like even if they have those two guys, it was still going to be a struggle to win that game. But they were the offense. I mean, they didn't run the ball the first like 10 games of the season.
Yeah.
Right. And then they decided, well, hell, we have to now because we don't have any receivers we can lean on, which I want to come back to the point I was going to make earlier. And I don't like to say this about Saban because I think he's obviously a great coach, but how were they not more prepared? You didn't have Mechie. You knew you didn't have Mechie. You have a month to prepare for that game, and you really didn't prepare anybody for it. Like Holden was the guy, right? Like the guy that was going to step into the role, and he just was kind of there. He made a couple plays, but nothing big.
Is that not preparing, or is that like just having overrated young guys?
I mean,
like if you think about it,
they're just not good enough.
Yeah, I mean it's possible. I mean, think about all those sick years of like those guys, right? Judy and Waddle and Devonta and all those guys. Like they always contributed a little bit with huge random game. Like Devonta Smith had like a 5 touchdown game in a season. He had like 25 catches, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, it didn't feel like they ever had a number 3. Like Slade Bolden was just like, just your guy, just the random guy that was going to get 3 catches and for 18-yard type, like because, and that was super frustrating because, you figure, Mechie get hurt or something like that. I think this is like with Waddle, maybe even a little bit last year, like you figured Slade would just slide right in and they never did. It was weird when Jameson got hurt, how like the guys that ended up getting all the targets were completely right. Like even then Slade didn't get a ton of targets. Like, and then you figure where's Billingsley the whole game,
and Latu.
And Latu. And like, I thought the whole time Latu would have to be forced to block, and Billingsley is not really, I mean, obviously he's not barely a tight end, like would just get a ton of targets, and none of that happened. So
yeah, it was definitely a weird year of Alabama offense. Like my wife's a huge Alabama fan, and she was sitting there saying like, I don't know what it is about them this year, but she says something's off. Something doesn't seem right. And we would watch Bryce Young. As many great plays as he made, there were plays that you thought, those aren't plays that Jalen Hurts or Tua would make. Like those aren't throws that they would miss, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Look, he won the Heisman Trophy, so it's hard to really, complain about how well he played. But
so we think one more receiver to Bama then, right? Like it has to be.
I would think so. Yeah.
And I'm not even, I know people love Burton, but like, I'm not even sold on him as like replacing Mechie. Or, I mean, obviously he's not replacing Jameson.
I think he's great, but I mean, we've only seen him. I think the stat is he only has one 100-yard game. It's that first JT Daniel start, right, where they just went absolutely nuclear on Mississippi State, and Burton broke out that game. And me speaking on behalf of all UGA fans, we've all kind of been projecting that and expecting that from him, and for lots of reasons. I mean, he was hurt, dinged up, however you want to phrase it, for almost all of this year, like barely getting practice reps, not starting a lot of the time. So, I mean, as it was the case for so many UGA wide receivers this year. You can, I mean, I more or less just scrap the production as any indication of anything representative of how good those players actually are this year. I mean, I've seen enough from Burn to feel really strong about his talent, and I think it'll be super, super interesting to see where he goes in fantasy drafts this year. I'm not all the way into the point where like I'm ready to just start competing with Devi and C2C guys for him in like the third or fourth round. If that's what the market price ends up being set at, I don't need to do that because I'm sure in that range there will be guys that I just feel a little more confident about. But I mean, I expect him to take on that Mechie role and have really strong production. So I mean, it's wheels up for me.
All right, so I was looking right here at the transfer portal of the wide receivers that are in it, and there's some interesting names that I feel like could happen. I don't think they will, but you never know. Chris's guy, Brew McCoy.
That would be
right.
mean, he did some bad things, but
on-field talent. Who hasn't done
on-field talent? Why would he not? I mean, that feels like a great fit.
I mean,
where is he going to go? Because isn't it weird that we haven't heard? Is it because people are like, coaches are like not quite desperate enough yet to take on that PR hit? Like they're like, I got to see where some other guys land, and if we miss them, then like screw it, I'll eat it for a week and bad publicity, and like donate to charity at the same time, maybe, right? Like, what's the deal there?
I don't know.
Is his legal situation all resolved, or I assume?
I think it is.
Yeah. From removing the legal aspect of it, I agree with you. It totally feels like the kind of recruit that Alabama would bring in and have success with, right? But
the opportunity's there, though. Like, that's the thing. Like, it'd be one thing if they were loaded at wide receiver and you thought there's no way he's going to play. But he could – we haven't seen him really play, but I feel like the opportunity's there to be a focal point of that offense still.
I would go as far as saying he'd be the most talented receiver on that team.
I mean, that's fair to say.
What's your memory of how his career played out in 2019 and 2020?
The only thing I remember is that he had a touchdown that like was the most BS touchdown. It went to another. It was supposed to go to probably St. Brown, and it tipped to Brew McCoy. But that team was stacked. So if we're talking, you can't really. He was like the fourth receiver, and he had decently, fairly consistent numbers. And he just always looked good to me.
I feel like he did not really get on the field at all in 2019, and everyone kind of assumed he was going to have a tough time doing it in 2020. And then he started really hot, relatively speaking, like the first couple of games of 2020. Like we were all starting to play him in DFS, right? Here it goes. Here we go. And then he kind of faded out again, right? And just was – I feel like he ended up doing not much like the back half of the 2020 season. And then obviously nothing happened in 2021.
Is he – how far out of high school is he? Was this year supposed to be a sophomore year or a junior year? Because I thought.
Are you talking actual years or weird college football years?
Actual years.
This was year 3.
Was it really?
I think so.
I thought he was 2.
Because did he transfer like 4 times in like a 6-month period?
Yeah, back and forth to Texas. Let's take a quick.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. It was weird because I didn't follow it very closely, but I thought, okay, he's going to Texas. And then the next thing you know, he's going to USC. Oh, no, he's going back to Texas.
It looks like 2020 was his first year.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. My bad.
Here's something.
So this will be year 3.
This will be year 3. Yes. But my question was he supposed to be a sophomore this past year?
Well, so technically he's a freshman, right? Like that's how this works.
Yeah, it's like none of it ever happened.
Okay.
How big do you think he is, real quick? Because I want to hear some of these other receiver names. I thought he was like a shorter guy. but he's not a shorter guy.
Well, I saw he's 6'3", 220, right? Like that's about how big he is.
I would have guessed like 6'1", 195.
I would.
That dude's a
Yeah,
tank.
yeah, that's what I would have said too. Who are the other portal quickly? Who are the other receivers in the portal that look?
I'm trying to look at. Those are the ones that are already enrolled. Taj Harris, we talked about him last go around. He hasn't committed anywhere.
He committed to Kentucky and then came back out, right? And then Tavion Robinson swooped in.
Yeah, he committed pretty quickly. He's still getting Kentucky. I'm looking at 24/7. Like
committed, and then it was like, nope, I'm out. Thanks. I'm gonna be back in the portal and undecided.
There's some enrolled. Bo Corrales seems like a perfect slide into Slade Bolden's role.
That was his career at UNC was weird, wasn't it? That guy had some really good games.
He's going to SMU now.
Yeah.
And he had some weird, like, just all of a sudden was like, nope, I'm not playing.
What about?
Well, his knee was all messed up, and we just never got a good timeline or expectation. And next thing I know, I'm burning 24th round best ball picks on him, thinking he's like good to go, and then dude doesn't play down.
I've done worse.
Yeah.
Forgive me if I mispronounce his name, but is this guy even good enough? Trey Shropshire? Oh,
that's Chris's dog.
Yeah,
I know.
That's not a move that guy makes. That's not a move he makes, unfortunately.
Why not? It's in state.
Yeah,
stays in state.
I mean, Saban, could he live with himself if that was like his second best receiver going into the year?
Why not?
Shropshire. I think if we're at this far down in the list, Bama.
I mean, Toe came from Tennessee, and they're a dumpster fire. So
yeah, but they're not gonna just pick guys off the list. They're gonna go.
They're getting the off the list, the off the menu order.
Yeah, exactly.
These are the secret menu, like at McDonald's. Like they don't tell you they're there, but they'll do it.
Who is the secret menu receiver?
And I'm looking at this list, and there's not very many big names still that haven't either committed somewhere or.
Yeah, but that's on the menu, Zach.
Well, it's on the menu. What the hell? So you're talking about somebody who's already
the menu.
Somebody who's somewhere else then.
Yeah.
Currently. That hasn't gone portal yet.
That hasn't portaled yet.
Yeah, that one I don't know. I haven't even looked into that. You guys have any?
Andrew, you got any?
What about Wicks from Virginia when he finds out what a disaster that offense is going to be?
If you turn that offense into a disaster, I mean, what are you doing? I mean, could you imagine? I mean, Armstrong wasn't going to go anywhere anyway, so like he didn't really have a choice. So unless he wanted to portal as well, but you can't. You got to let that offense do it again,
right?
Because Wicks was too good.
All right, here are two other ones, guys who we as a community were
need to band together.
Relatively high on going into 2021, and they both sucked. Fogle and Jalen Robinson.
I feel like we should have known better with Fogle.
Yeah,
that guy just struck gold with like the 4 Phoenix games that were awesome. That Ohio State game. And then once he got hurt, like once Phoenix got hurt, and you're relying on Jack Tuttle, you know it's over.
It was over.
What about this? Is a guy I want to like peg somewhere later in a conversation, but Nathaniel Dell, he's still at Houston, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a cool ad for Bama?
It would be cool.
G5, and I'm thinking like, what is a realistic player that could do it, but hasn't portal yet? I feel like a stud G5 receiver, although I think Houston's probably too good to portal out, but
I mean, you're going to Alabama. That's different than going to like Tennessee, where you're it's an SEC school, but it's not Alabama. If you start for Alabama, you're pretty much getting looks in the NFL, right? Like they're gonna at least give you a shot.
When's the end of people transferring? At what point will they stop announcing?
Like, when does the portal close for this year?
Yeah, I
That's a
feel. By the
good
way, I feel like my mom talking about the portal right now. Hearing her
I
talk
feel
about
like
the portal.
I feel
is
like
just
the general
hilarious.
idea is you got to be enrolled before the ad drop classes date, but that's what people say. But at the same time, why does it matter? Like, come on, you know, shit doesn't actually matter.
Okay,
Couldn't you
so
just make up
hold on.
couldn't you
So
make up credits in the
got
summer?
some
I
news
feel
that
like.
just hit Twitter.
Oh God.
Joshua Moore committing to SMU.
Yeah, he backed out from
It Texas Tech?
Yeah,
That seems pretty cool.
they have so many receivers now, though. I feel like it's creating more problems than we need. Like, if they didn't take on Corrales and Moore, their room is so clean with Rashee Rice, Curley, and Goffney. Like, we're good to go. We've got those three guys that just move in really nicely and transition to 1, 2, 3.
You know what that means. One's got to leave and go to Alabama.
Whose receiver room are you taking if Joshua Moore is at SMU? SMU's or Alabama's?
Oh man, you know I love the
It's got to be SMU, right?
SMU.
I mean, this is a pro Rashee Rice podcast, so you know we're SMU.
Yeah, and Curley and Goffney are sweet too.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they're so deep at wide receiver that Alabama is like, man, can we just swap wide receiver, like completely swap? Let's do a whole trade, and I think Alabama would be very happy, and they would win that. Let's see. Any more players you think that should transfer somewhere and that they haven't yet?
That need to go?
That either need to go or you would think they would be better off going somewhere else.
So it's purely selfish.
I
want to find out if Evan Conley can actually play football. The Louisville backup quarterback, like in the world of the transfer portal, this dude has sat behind Mecole Cunningham for 3 years now, and he. Do you remember that crazy game they played against Wake Forest in 2019 where there were like 130 points and Cunningham gets hurt like midway through the third quarter? Conley comes in, puts up like 30 fantasy points in a quarter and a half. We never hear from him again in 2019. And he just came in the last game of the regular season. Cunningham got hurt again after struggling all game against Kentucky, immediately throws a 70-yard touchdown. Like, I want to know if this kid can actually play. He was a decent recruit, and he's just chilling behind Cunningham. Like, I don't know. Maybe he's getting hooked up with the NIL deals on the side to like maybe that's how you keep a backup quarterback at this point in the college football landscape. But it doesn't. I just want to believe, and I want to know if he's good.
That's actually a great point. Like, something I actually have never thought of until you just said it. Like, how do you keep guys around anymore?
Everyone talks about it through the context of like coaches need to recruit their own players every offseason, which I mean, add another reason why being a college football coach is the worst job, like from any sort of mental health standpoint in the world. Like,
yeah,
I don't understand college kids because they leave when there's great situations. They go to schools that don't do what like the last week's conversation about UCF and receivers going to UCF makes no sense. Like, why would you do that? And then like you have high school kids that just continuously. Why would you be the third 5-star to go to Georgia to play quarterback? How does Georgia get 7 5-star running backs every year? Like, just go somewhere else and you could be a stud. And like, the worst is when they go to a school that like they're a running quarterback and they go to like a Nevada that only wants to just Carson Strong it, you know?
Yeah. Some like the decision making of these kids, like, look, do what you want to do. It's your life, your career, whatever. But you're right. Like, they make these decisions like, I'm going to go from a good situation where I was starting. Now I'm going to go somewhere where now I have to fight to start. And when I do start, I may not even get the ball.
Yeah.
Like, it's quite odd, really, some of the decisions these guys make.
I mean, we just have access to such little information, right? All we see is offer commit, but like,
right. We don't see the under the table deals that we know are happening. But back to what I was saying though, like, how do you keep somebody to like? How do you keep them there? You can't say, well, you know, if you work hard, you'll get your shot. Like, screw that. I can go to Tulsa and get my shot tomorrow, right? Like, it would be impossible.
I don't think you can. I don't think you can.
Impossible.
Like, it's literally, you just try your best and that's it. Like, you just, there's no way to, there's too many people out, there's too many teams out there.
Right. All right. We'll wrap that up. And one thing we can talk about, this might be a pretty big discussion, but we've had some pretty big dynasty trades in the last year or two that we can talk about. Like, what was good, what was bad, any of them that jump out to you that you made or saw somebody else make?
I'll start it off. I only had bad, so Bainbridge would agree with that one. I traded. So I've been pretty anti Spencer Rattler in the past, and I was like, if there's one format to get him, it would be Dynasty. Go figure, that was not the right answer. So I actually traded Breece Hall and Jerome Ford for Spencer Rattler to last offseason. That did not pay off well. My team would have been I would have had the most incredible running back receiver group ever. I log jammed my quarterbacks and went downhill. But I was not sold on Ford. And so that's why I was like, well, you know what? I'm going top quarterback, top running back. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, it's tough because, like, if you're not sold on a guy, it's hard to justify keeping him when other people are sold on him, right? Like, if you know, like, man, they really like this guy, man, I can get something good for him, right? Like, your own desire to keep him weighs so much in these trades because there's guys that I like that I don't ever want to give up. And people are like, yeah, I don't really want him. I'm like, why don't you want him? He's so good, right? I know you're there. But anyway, as far as trades, Andrew, any trade you made that you regret or just?
I was looking at all my dynasty trades leading up to this, and I'm pretty boring as a dynasty player, generally speaking, in the sense that in season, my goal, if I'm competing, I just go out and break the bank and pay up to just go buy short-term mercenaries to try and win me a championship. Like, I'll trade my first-round pick. It's whatever. There'll be a million guys on waiver wire. I'll figure it out later.
Hold on. You got to tell everybody, though, you got to trade one of your first-round picks. Because you make all these deals to gather the picks.
Yeah, but that was before I had kids. I don't have time to do that anymore. When I loaded up on like 30 or 40 draft picks for like 3 years down the line, and then I'm still kind of swimming.
We have 8 rounds that are slotted for our draft, and Andrew will have 35 picks.
Not anymore, though. I'm down to only about 1.5 x of a normal draft. So times change, but I'll adjust. But I remember going into this past season in the offseason, I was trying to like just figure out some things, make some trades, and I was all proud of myself for like executing a real dynasty trade, a 2-for-2, posted about it on Twitter, was ready to defend it against whoever came at me. And when we were getting ready to do this, I was like, let me look up that trade because I want to brag about that. And I was like, I remember I got Greg Bell and Plumlee, and I was like, okay, Bell's going to show out this year, and Plumlee's going to either maybe he'll actually successfully transition to a receiver. Maybe Corral gets hurt and he comes in. Maybe he transfers out of the program and becomes a startable quarterback, which is, where I stand on that at this point. It's all coming to fruition. It's all going to work. And I was like, well, what did I give up? I remember I traded Zamir White, who, as an UGA fan, I mean, I love the Zeus story, and I can't believe he played as well as he did in the championship like that. I did not expect that. So good for him. I hope he goes and gets a lot of money in the draft. But I was like, who's the second guy I gave up? It was a 2-for-2. And it turned out to be Will Rogers, so I was planning on coming into this and bragging about that trade, but now I guess I have to take an L there.
Walk that one back.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's gonna work out. But I didn't really have that many trades where I, outside of just buying mercenaries for draft picks and stuff. I mean, around the same time as this 2 for 2, I sold off Michael Pratt for a 2nd round pick, so I feel good about that. But yeah, nothing really else to brag about in the way of trades.
I only made a few trades this year, less than I have, and maybe it's because, like you, Andrew, I don't have the time to sit there and try to like whip up some great offers to people. Like, I don't spam offers to every team in the league.
I used to.
Well, I know that's what I was getting at, but no. So I made a couple trades. One I actually made with Chris that I feel pretty good about.
I don't remember this one, so
I think it worked out. Like, Chris had a team that was competitive, and mine was faltering because of my quarterback situation mainly. But Mateo Durant and the 5th round pick for Raheem Sanders and the 2nd rounder. Like, Durant was he was an immediate touchdown every week.
He was demolishing, yeah, and then he did like nothing pretty much after.
Well, yeah, I had to call him and tell him, dude, you got to quit doing that. You're not on my roster anymore, so
dude, go ahead. We're out of that sweet non-conference schedule. It's time to.
It was like week 7, okay? He had like 2. It's ACC. They're all non-conference games.
Right, and then
you definitely won that one. I mean, you could say without a doubt you won that one.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess if Sanders turns into something, I have just the more time to wait for it, I guess, which I think he will. I hope I win it, and I feel like I won it. But this is the one I'm really curious about, though. I got Mario Williams I traded Sky Moore and Brad Roberts at the deadline and got Mario Williams.
It worked out because Sky Moore went pro.
Right.
Because your team wasn't competing, so it was like, what's the point?
Right.
And then you really looked up because Sky went pro, and then Mario Williams went to USC.
Oh, I love that. That's my favorite thing. When I trade somebody that has eligibility left, and then they go pro. Oh, it's the best. It makes me feel so good. I'm like, yes, I'm so glad I didn't hold on to him, and now I have nothing to show for it. But
yeah. I have an interesting one that I definitely fell on my face on, but I could do it because of where my team was at. That now I think has turned around where I could potentially win the trade. So I was stacked at quarterback, like insanely stacked at quarterback, like Malik Willis, DeLaura, Mordecai, and Will Rogers even, I think, too, on my team. So I traded Sam Howell for Chris Smith from Lafayette, Jermaine Burton, and Polk from Kent State. And I was joking with you guys earlier, I like used Chris Smith like twice the whole season. But I mean, Bailey and Montreal Johnson are gone. And so now it's like he's the lone guy, right? And then Jermaine Burton's at Bama. I think I might have just like gone full circle and won this trade.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely looking up.
Did you guys, this conversation makes me think of that tweet that went out maybe in the last week, and it was like 2 polls screenshot back to back, and it was like, how many of you offer like a good fair deal on the first try, like in the first offer? And it was like 75% of people said yes. And then another poll, same guy said, which one of how often do you get a great deal on the first offer? And they like 75% of people said no, like not the case. So it was like literally, but I mean, that's just kind of how it is, right? You kind of have to like never give up, show your guns on the first offer, right?
Well, the deal that you offer, you might think is fair to you. You've already talked yourself into this, man. I don't know how he turns this down. And then you inevitably get the rejected trade, and you're like, are you kidding me?
Well, like in Dynasty, there's all those different variables that everyone kind of weighs differently relative to where they are in the competing life cycle, right? So from your perspective, and obviously you try and put yourself in other person's shoes to some degree, but you don't know exactly how they're thinking. That's only going to make it more difficult when you're trying to weigh, is this actually a fair offer?
That's
a lot
fair.
of moving pieces. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you're completely out of it, especially your team's done for the year, like week 5, you're 0-4. You're like, well, I'm probably not going to even make the playoffs. So let me just go ahead and offer some guys to like get stock talent, right? Whereas to you, that might be your mindset, whereas somebody else wants to win now and wants all your stars. But yeah, I guess it all is your perspective on where you stand in the league.
I want to ask a off the cuff random question because we talked about Bama, and I'm thinking to myself, Brian Robinson's gone, right? So
Yeah.
who's the running back, and why is Trey Sanders not good at football?
Dude, they got Gibbs.
Yeah.
Oh shoot, yeah, they got Gibbs. We're good.
You want to edit that out? You want to edit
No,
that
that's
out?
fine. I
No,
have
that's
Gibbs. I have Gibbs in my industry league, so that just reminded me how happy I am.
Yeah.
Well, it just shows that it was a really unscripted question. That's what
We're genuine in this room.
It happened. Do you remember when that happened? It happened at like the exact same time as another huge piece of news dropping, like literally within like 60 seconds. I forget what it was. It was like a Wednesday afternoon at like 3
I was
o'clock.
golfing, and I was like, yeah, I remember. Was it?
I forget what it was.
TCU running back.
But I don't know. It's funny how we get like, it seems like the news comes in waves, right? We'll get like 5 awesome things happen, and then like nothing will happen for a day. But it's great. There's no off season anymore. It's awesome.
All right, so just real quick. So I guess how do we feel about Zach Evans?
I mean, Ole Miss he's at Ole Miss, right? I'm not confident in anything I say. I mean, without all the running backs there now, that's pretty great, right? Ely's gone, Parrish is gone, Snoop Connor's even gone, right? Didn't he declare for some reason?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's like an elite spot, right?
You would think.
Elite spot, elite talent, and there's not a lot to like.
I mean, there's lots of different ways to think about it, and with Evans, of course, there's so much unknown in every single. That like you can't you have no idea what's.
Is he going to be another Tate Martell, or is he going to be?
But we think about the idea of these 3 running backs leaving, him coming in, there not being any competition. So, I mean, the immediate what you gravitate towards, wow, 20, 25, 30 touches are in the realm of possibility, right? But he had that opportunity last year, and they were only giving him 15, 20 touches based on what you want to believe, what you hear, right? Is some of it was that he potentially was not in the shape to take on any more work than that he was driving on the sideline or just like out of breath on the sideline. But that first 6 or 7 games, when he was getting like 15, 16, 17, upwards of 20 touches, like he didn't need any more work than that. It was putting up top 10, 15 RB numbers in CFF. So, I mean, there will continue to be lots of unknowns, lots of considerations that you want to try and weigh when it comes to Evans, just because of how up and down and bumpy things have been with him. But I mean, in the Dynasty startup, I drafted him in last year. I took him in the 3rd round, and I feel good about that going into this year for sure. It sucks he didn't play the second half of the year, but I mean, in terms of just validating what can be, I feel like I made a good decision. I love the talent. I've seen it translate to real production, and there's a lot of ways that I think this could play out amazingly at Ole Miss.
He does feel like the right running back for Ole Miss, right? Like, I mean, obviously,
we just need to pray that Lane doesn't get offered an NFL job. I feel like that's
the Jags.
That's the immediate blocker to him fulfilling the prophecy of just going absolutely nuclear.
He feels like a big step up at running back, like talent wise. Like, I mean, yeah, the guys they had there were really good, but this guy's got, pro. They've already been talking about him as being one of the top running backs going pro. And he really hasn't done a whole lot.
He's got the fresh legs. That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Keep the legs fresh.
Maybe that's the key. Just keep transferring to where you don't really actually have to play. And then now you're eligible for the draft, and you only have had like 18 carries.
And there's no stigma about you sitting out a year.
Right. So you're ready to go. Like you're 23, but you really have like 18-year-old legs, and you're good.
Does he have 1 year left or 2 years left, Andrew?
This was his second year out of college, or out of high school.
So he's in the same group as Bijan and Gibbs.
Yeah.
Who is at Bama, by the way? I don't know if
I think if he has a big year, he's going pro, right?
He's gone regardless. Yeah. He doesn't. I mean, look at the guys going pro these days. Like, literally, Snoop Connor is going pro. Like, and I'm sure he's a great guy, a nice guy. But like, why wouldn't you just stay at Ole Miss with the NIL? Like, it's not like there's no NIL, right? Like, he has opportunity to make money and only improve his draft stock. Like, I get it's a weak running back class, but what are you thinking?
Yeah. I'm looking at like the guys that have declared for the draft, and I'm like, what? Yeah, Snoop Connor. There he is.
Tell me I'm wrong, and he's a 6th year senior.
Oh, he might be.
He's the same age as his number. So,
wow. Well, I guess then we can leave it there. We talked about pretty much everything we set out to talk about.
We accomplished our goals.
Yeah, for sure. If you guys have anything else, last minute adds to this, or you guys good?
I don't think so. I think we covered what we needed to cover.
No, it's great getting the band back together. It wasn't the same without you, Chris.
It's like it's got to be 10 years, right? Didn't someone jokingly say 10-year anniversary? I think that was maybe Mike and Josh and I in a DM saying like 10-year anniversary of us getting together and doing these stupid shows, or at least the random conversations. But
yeah, I mean, I think it's been probably 8.
Yeah.
Right.
By the way, we need to one of these shows. I was just thinking about this. Look at our go through our draft, our dynasty draft from way back. There's nothing better, I think, than the nostalgic look back at history of like, I don't know, it was probably like 2014 or 2015 where it was our first year in like looking at who you picked in the first round.
Ooh.
In like the second round, because I think back then too, ODU had like some promising situation, so people would be drafting ODU quarterbacks early.
Heineke.
I took Keenan Reynolds early, I'm pretty sure.
My first 2 picks were Travis Green and Antoine Goodley, and they were both awful. And they were both seniors. Way to build a dynasty team, Andrew.
And it was all downhill from there.
I feel like my strategy for dynasty has changed from when we started to where we are now.
How would you do it now? And we just lengthened the show by 20 minutes by me asking that. But how would you do now?
Like if we were starting it up today. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I would definitely draft a lot more players that I know are going to give me points today than I did before.
You'd go more like stud junior, senior level.
Like guys that were more of a sure thing. Like, they may not be the top 5 of that position, but at least I know that what I'm going to get instead of just trying to bank on these freshmen that may never play. As you see it, like the guys transfer multiple times that I ever see in the field. Like I feel like I would be a little more senior and
proven.
It's a rare situation where I use a high pick on a true freshman. In the draft where I took Evans in the 3rd, I took Trey Henderson in the 2nd and Shipley in the 6th, and they both cashed. But like I was super into both those guys coming to it. And generally, like I don't get into recruiting. I don't care about high school kids in any capacity. Like it's just like once you put on the college jerseys, when I start to care about you. So I'm never going to be, almost never going to be on as high as anyone else on true freshmen coming to the picture. Which I mean. I think there's so many different ways in CFF that it's fine, but I mean, I think I don't want to necessarily take a ton of seniors or draft eligible juniors and stuff like that. But I mean, the way I feel like I approached it in this most recent dynasty startup I did is I try and balance probably like 50% of just guys that I feel really, really strong about to get me immediate production. And then I'll think a little more medium to long term about my other 50% of my picks.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning more with Zach. I've always feel like I drafted based, like even in like redrafts, it's like always, or even like the best balls that we do now, that I feel like I go for the way more proven, like maybe a little bit less upside. But I think the longer you get into these things, especially dynasty like startups, you start to see guys that are like actually really good. Like I don't know, random but potentially good example would be like Jack Sorensen. All of a sudden is like available in like the 18th round, and you're like, did he just like tear an Achilles and I don't know about it yet? Like, why is he still here? Type of thing. And I feel like in college, there's so many of those guys that you can do that with because of how crazy the MAC can be. That maybe I should be a little bit more towards the upside early.
In college, I feel like returning production is such a trick a lot of times too. In the sense that just because a guy like, okay, let's say you're trying to organize your thoughts and organize your rankings for the upcoming season. What you do is you roll over production from the previous season, back out everyone who's gone from the picture, and you're left with basically a list of
just like push them up,
the highest performing players from the previous year. A lot of those guys suck / are in no way a good bet to reproduce that production for the current year. It's just that they were good last year because everything kind of worked perfectly. Everything kind of shook out for them. Maybe they just played every game, but given how much change, like, okay, 2 examples, right? The Quad Brown and Preston Hutchinson. Like those guys produced last year or in 2020. And they were going pretty high in this year. I mean, I feel like a strong reason for why they were going pretty high is just because they were on the field, did some good things, did some explosive things, but everything kind of broke right for them in 2020. And Hutchinson didn't, he lost his job even before the season started, and then Quad lost a few games in. So I feel like returning production it can be such a trick and a trap to fall into in college football just because so little about that the previous season you can actually roll over to the current one.
Yeah. It's tough because you see the stats and you're like, oh yeah, this guy's a lock to even, because your natural instinct is, okay, he had this, he's going to go this year, right? Like that's what you're inclined to think, but it's not always the case. But all right, they're really going to cut it here now. Chris added another 15 minutes to this, but that's all we've got for tonight. So you guys have a good night, and we'll do this again sometime soon. Hopefully we can do this weekly, bi-weekly, just talk about whatever news that comes out, whatever. So
let's do
you guys
it.
are down, I'm down to do it. So
Definitely.
All right, guys. Later.
See ya.
Later.